Well, as the election approaches in November, we're starting to get an idea of what will shape Joe Biden's campaign over the coming months. Bill Whittle, this is your show. Bill Whittle Now. I am Scott Ott, and I know you weren't expecting this kind of a question, but I am going to tell you what Joe Biden's greatest concern is, the man who would be president of the United States, and his second greatest concern. So and this is a quote from him on The Daily Show.
Are they different?
Well, they're related. And this follows his greatest concern. He said, it's my greatest concern, my single greatest concern. And that is that Donald Trump will steal the election. Bill Whittle,
wow.
Let's start there before we get into the second greatest concern. And with all of the virus pandemic and the racial discord and riots and looting and peaceful protesters and, police brutality and all of that going on, the single greatest concern of the Democratic presumptive nominee is that Donald Trump will steal the election.
You always tell yourself, this surely must be the bottom, right? You just can't conceive of anything lower than this. But what this senile, doddering old lech has just done is sown the seeds for the destruction of Trump term 2. That's what he's done. His strategy is to sow the seeds of the destruction of Trump's second term by starting already by calling the election that hasn't happened yet into question. So if the election hasn't occurred yet and the results are already being called into question, you can rest assured what the narrative will be on the first Wednesday in November. And this is the most disgraceful thing I think I've ever heard from a presidential candidate.
Now, Bill, I can't remember the details, but as you say this, it didn't occur to me earlier, but as you say this, wasn't there an incident before the last presidential election where the Republican nominee was kind of sowing the seeds for the possibility that the Democrats may do something corrupt and therefore that could jeopardize the election? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I remember when Donald Trump was asked if he would accept the result of the election, and I think he said something along the lines of, it depends. It depends on whether or not there was rampant vote stealing. But that's not the same as preeminently saying, not preeminently, thank you, saying that I'm really worried that Joe Biden or that Hillary Clinton will steal the election. Let's not forget that Trump was pilloried for that remark, and the person who simply wouldn't accept the results of the election are Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. And they haven't accepted it for the last 3.5 years. But to say that is look, I understand how these people work. I never cease to be amazed by it, but once I hear it, I understand how they work. They're prepping the post-election battle space, and they are prepping it for revolution and riot and unremitting obstructionism, because somebody is disassembling this machine that they've spent half a century building, and it bothers them a bit.
Well, the second question that came up, and Bill, the reason I'm raising this, it seems like such a trivial thing in many ways, but the reason I'm raising it is because I've noticed kind of a recurring meme related to this specific question. And again, this is on The Daily Show, but this is how, that's a comedy show, so-called, but this is how a lot of Americans get their news. And the follow-up question was whether or not Joe Biden was concerned that when Donald Trump loses the election, he might not be willing to leave the White House. And have you thought about that, Mr. Former Vice President? And Joe Biden, who was the vice president and hopes to be president, said, yes, I have. So he's been giving this serious consideration, but he said he's talked to military people, and he says, quote, I promise you, I'm absolutely convinced that they, meaning the military, will escort him from the White House with great dispatch. Bill?
I think I've had enough for today.
Go ahead.
No, I really do. I honestly do. I got nothing else to say. That the fact that this man is the nominee of a major political party and is not, first of all, preemptively calling into question the results of the election, and then preemptively saying that for the first time in American history, a president will refuse to leave office, or at least it's a concern of his. I'm done today. I can't take any more. I really can't, Scotty. I have nothing else to add to this. This should make you beyond angry. This should go well beyond angry into shock and despair that a major candidate, the candidate of the Democratic Party of the United States, would say those two things. I hope to God, I used to feel sorry for him, and now I hope to God he gets in a debate, and I hope he gets so shellacked he doesn't know what day it is. And I'm really done talking about it. I got nothing else to say.
Okay, well, I'll move off that topic, and we can bring it to a close with this question on a somewhat related topic, but not directly to this. Terry McAuliffe, once the chair of the DNC, I believe he also was governor of Virginia. He was overheard on a recording telling Democrats that it's better for Biden to stay in the basement. And he didn't mean that as an insult. He basically meant that if he were in Biden's shoes right now, he would let President Trump continue to screw things up with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic, with regard to the George Floyd protests and the racial justice issues, and then periodically just make major announcements, but basically stay out of the limelight even now. And again, I don't think McAuliffe was insulting Biden. I think...
No, it's wise advice.
Yeah, I think literally, though, this Democrat thinks with the national polls, not necessarily state by state, but national polls showing Biden has a lead, and in some cases it's growing, and some polls showing that President Trump's unpopularity or gap between those who are support or approve and disapprove, growing, not all polls, but some polls showing that. It sounds to me like he's almost saying, everything's going our way. Let's just let this guy hang himself and then we'll come waltzing in. First of all, do you agree with his assessment? Secondly, doesn't that pose a tremendous risk this close to the election?
I agree with his strategy. I think his assessment is a fig leaf. It would be a catastrophe for Joe Biden to essentially say nothing and disappear prior to the election. And the only thing that would be worse than that would be if Joe Biden comes out in public and actually does start speaking. That would be the end of the election. And everybody knows it. Of course they want him to stay in the basement. The man's a walking embarrassment. His senility is so obvious that it's enough to make you cringe. Used to be a point where you would laugh at it and giggle and be a little bit startled or shocked. Now it's just like, for God's sakes, please, can we stop this? And by the way, he is a serial groper. And I saw somebody put together a 2.5-minute video of just nothing but Joe Biden doing the touchy-feely thing and talking about grooming the victims, I think was the term that he used. The guy who wrote it, who put the thing together, is a psychologist. He says, I'm not accusing Joe Biden of molesting anybody, but I am saying the behaviors that he's been conducting his entire political life are pretty much the same as everything. And I've seen a 2-minute video of nothing but young women and kids groaning, wanting to get away, having him ask 16 or 17-year-olds, if they were married yet. And luckily for him that they were, and this kind of thing. He has a woman problem. He has a race problem. He also has an extraordinarily obvious and flagrant cognitive problem, and is in no way fit to be president of the United States. And even if he had none of those problems, I think he's unfit to be president based on those two statements on The Daily Show, which to me are inexcusable, absolutely treasonable to the entire idea of America. And I know exactly why he's saying them. And now so do you. It's laying the groundwork for 4 more years of this kind of obstructionism. A case will be found and pursued. It will be the Russia of Team 2, how Trump stole the election, when we all know that it's the Democrats that do the vote harvesting, and every time somebody dead votes, they vote Democrat, and so on and so on and so on. We are in serious trouble in this country. We're serious, serious trouble in this country. And this just, most of the time on this show, I just get angry. And now this just fills me with just embarrassment and despair. Seriously.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're grateful to the members at BillWhittle.com who, while they may feel the way Bill just described, like Bill, they have not given up the fight, and they are
I
continuing
haven't either.
to lead the charge of liberty around the world. They have a fellowship of conservative constitutionalists who are encouraging one another. And in addition to having serious conversations like this one, engaging in a lot of humorous banter as well. You're going to love being a member when you go to BillWhittle.com and click that big green Become a Member link. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.